Hey guys, it's Lena here. Welcome to my garden. The other day I was out here showing you guys my Cape Paris magnolia tree, and I said that I really loved it and it was one of my favorite trees in the yard. Well, today I'm here to show you another one of my favorites, which is this one right here. This is Hydrangea Paniculata, and this is a variety called Phantom. The one that I have is in a tree form. I've had this tree since the summer of 2020, and right now, mid-September of 2023, this tree has been in the ground for me for just over 3 years. I'd like to tell you guys what a beautiful tree this is and how wonderful it is to have it in a small garden like the one that I have right now. There are so many ways you can use this tree. I'm using it as a focal point on my patio, but you can also grow it as a privacy hedge or use it in a border to add some heights and interests. I'm gonna show you guys what this tree looked like when I first bought and planted it, and we're gonna be following its progress in the last 3 years, and we're gonna take a look at its growth cycle and talk about pros and cons of having this tree. This is kind of like an update video because I did a video on it already one time before, but that was like 2 years ago. So this is kind of like taking another look at it and see how it's doing 2 years after. Alright, first I'm going to take you back in time to July 2020 when I went out and bought this tree. I got it from Home Depot's garden center, and the tree came in a 5-gallon pot. The trunk of the tree was about 3 feet tall, while the top of the tree was about 2.5 feet tall and wide. The trunk didn't really grow. It feels to me like it's remained the same size in height until today, but the top has expanded quite a bit. The tree was already in full bloom when I bought it, and I planted it in a full sun location, which was right in the center front of my patio. And I think being planted in a full sun location, at least 4 to 6 hours of sun a day minimum, is really key to this tree's health and vigor. The tree was small, so I gave it some support during that first growing season, and I made sure that it was well watered. I went out to water it deeply once a week, and I watered it regularly, and I just left it to grow for that entire season. In September of 2021, I could already see the tree had expanded in size. It almost doubled in size, and it flowered really well for me. And I didn't really do anything other than keeping it well watered in the summer months and giving it full sun. The location that I have it planted here gets about 6 to 8 hours of sun a day. Later on that winter, I decided to leave all the flowers on the stems because I wanted to give my garden a bit of winter interest while not much else was happening in the garden. And then springtime came, April 2022. You could see here that my Phantom Hydrangea didn't have a whole lot of leaves on it yet. And I do want to mention that Phantom Hydrangea is one of the last trees in my garden to leaf out. But what I do to keep this area interesting is I planted some daffodil and tulip bulbs in the area and some wallflowers. So, smaller flowers and smaller shrubs grow well around this tree. It's a good team player. And I keep a container of annuals. Like in this case, I've got some annual dahlias growing here. And I do take this time in the spring to enjoy other beautiful trees that I have going on in my garden. Like this is my bloodgood Japanese maple tree that's looking really beautiful always in the springtime. And this one is Susan magnolia. Especially in the months of April and May, this tree is really wonderful because it's in flower, and I really love the flowers of my Susan magnolia. I do have a couple of fruit trees around my garden. I have 2 apple trees and 1 peach tree, and while I'm waiting for my Phantom Hydrangea to leaf out and form flowers, I enjoy my apple blossoms and my peach blossoms. However, if you're looking for trees or shrubs that leaf out really early, I recommend Japanese dappled willows, which are these guys here, these green shrubs. I have a couple of them in my yard, and these guys leaf out as early as February. But in the summer months, starting end of June, July, August, all the way through fall until late fall, that's really the time for our Phantom Hydrangea to shine, because other things in the garden are starting to be a little bit quiet, but this tree or shrub will be in its full glory. Just take a look at these beautiful cone-shaped flowers that are creamy white in color. They really brighten up my entire patio for the whole summer. If we take a closer look at the flowers, you'll see that these tiny, delicate petals, they are actually bracts or modified leaves, and many of them will form around the starburst florets, and those are the actual flowers on the inside. Now that we've talked about its growth habit and we've taken a look at its growth cycle, let's go on to talk about its pros and cons. I'm probably gonna have a lot more pros to talk about than cons, I admit. I'm a little bit biased when it comes to phantom hydrangeas because I really love it and I really don't see a whole lot of downsides from having this tree in your yard. One of the cons may be the fact that it is a non-native. It's a non-native tree to North America. I know that some people don't like that, but if you ask me, for it being a non-native, it really attracts a whole lot of pollinators, and that's always a plus in my garden. My phantom hydrangea brings in a lot of bees, wasps, and sometimes even hornets to my garden. So if you don't like these pollinators or if you are afraid of them, you won't want to plant this anywhere near your seating area. I've been so fortunate that I have not been stung, not even once, in my garden. And there are so many of them in the summer. And I sit there all the time with my food and everything, and they tend to just leave me alone. So I really consider myself lucky there. I did mention that it's a good team player. In the springtime, you saw that I had a bunch of tulips and many other things growing around it. And in the summer, I had lily bulbs, and right now in the fall, I've got some dahlias around it. I had some wallflowers in here earlier this year, but I dug them out and I planted them somewhere else because I only wanted to keep bulbs in this area. So hyacinth, daffodil, tulips, lilies, dahlias, I had a bunch of those growing around here. If you decide to grow these bulbs or small shrubs around the tree, I would advise that you grow it a good 3 feet away from the trunk as to not inhibit or interfere with the tree's growth. Another pro that I can think of about this tree is the fact that it's relatively easy to maintain. It takes low to moderate amount of water. For example, this summer has been super hot and dry in my area in Zone 8B in the Pacific Northwest of Washington State. We hardly got any rain at all. And I would come out here to water it once a week if I had the time, or sometimes once every 2 weeks. And it was still doing fine. I remember there was one time I took a vacation away from home for a good 3 weeks, and when I came back, this tree was still doing great. So I consider it relatively easy to maintain. The leaves don't wilt so easily, but when they do, it's usually because it's been just super hot, like extraordinary hot and dry, that the leaves started to wilt. So you want to come out and water right away, and the leaves would bounce back almost immediately. It's relatively pest-free also, but sometimes you'll see some of the leaves turning rusty, or you'll see like some of the browns on the edges of the leaves. I am not sure if that is because of the color changing effect. Usually happens around the month of September when the flowers start to change color. So I'm not sure if that's part of the color changing effect, or is it because the leaves have been like super scorched by the sun or something like that. I'm kind of new to gardening, you guys, so I can't really give you a definite answer as to why that's the case. But if you ask me my personal opinion, I don't think the fact that these leaves are turning a bit rusty, it doesn't take away from the beauty of the tree at all, because right now, as the flowers are changing color, you're kind of more focused on these like vanilla strawberry ice cream cone color, more so than what the leaves look like. So to me, it doesn't really bother me. Another good thing about phantom hydrangea that I do want to mention is the fact that it's got very strong, sturdy stems, and these stems don't droop when it rains. That's one of the questions that I get asked sometimes is, do they droop, especially after it rains? That hasn't been the case for me with phantom hydrangea. It's, I don't know what it is, but I think this is one of those varieties that has the stronger and sturdier stems compared to other hydrangeas. And I do know that that is or has been a problem with a lot of other varieties of hydrangeas, especially when it rains. Like the flowers like droop, the branches droop to the ground, and they just don't look pretty at all. But I have not had that problem with phantom hydrangea, so I think that is one of the advantages that this variety has. Alrighty. I guess that's all the pros and cons that I can think of. Another thing that I do want to show you is this propagation. So when I first made this video 2 years ago, and I'm going to include that link in the description below in case you want to see that video, I took a cutting from one of the shootings that shot up from the trunk, and I didn't really know at the time how it was going to turn out, you guys. So I took that cutting and I stuck it in a pot of soil, and it took, and this is what it's looking like nowadays. It's actually a tiny little shrub that looks exactly identical at its mother plant, but the one that I propagated in the tiny little pot there is in a shrub form, and I don't have the skills to train it into a tree form, so it's gonna stay a shrub form, and I'm gonna probably plant it in the ground somewhere in my garden this season before the winter arrives. So it's quite easy to propagate as well, and I'm not sure how to do it exactly. It was almost a fluke when I did it, but I think if I can do it, anyone can do it. It really is that easy. All right, is there anything else that I want to include? I don't think so. I think I've pretty much said everything that I wanted to include about this tree. I really hope you guys find my video helpful or informative if you're thinking of getting this tree, or if you already have one in your yard and you're kind of wondering what is gonna grow to look like. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day and happy gardening, everybody. Bye.